Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So before getting started, first we'll have just a quick recap that what we have discovered till now. So let's see till now what we have discovered. So yesterday we have completed with methods. Inside methods we have seen what are the return types, why do we need return types, how can we use return types, what are the different kinds of methods, and we also saw what is called as or what is method overloading and what is the need of method overloading and how can we use method overloading. So till now we have discovered this thing, and we have also discovered what are local variables. And yes, so now today's our first topic is Varargs. So your question may be like, what are Varargs? What do you mean by Varargs? So Varargs stands for variable arity. Now again, this doesn't sound good, like it is again very confusing. So what do you mean by arity? Okay, you know variable, the meaning of variable, the thing that varies, but what do you mean by arities? So arity is something like number of operators or number of parameters. So for example, you would have seen the keywords like unary, binary, ternary. So over here, see, this array is nothing but arities, and these are the number of arity that they have. So number of parameters over here in unary you have 1, binary you have 2, ternary you have 3. So this is the meaning of arity. So now let's see what are Varargs, how can we use them, and what are the need of them. So as we have discussed, Varargs are nothing but variable arity. Now we'll see where we use them. So Varargs can be used only as a parameter of a method. So let's say we declare a method. Okay, so let me make it a static int sum. This example we are quite familiar with. So if I give a Vararg, so let's say the name of my Vararg is a and the type of my Vararg is int. Now this is a kind of normal variable. To declare it as a Vararg, I'll say 3 dots. So now this 3 dot says that this a is a kind of Varargs. So now our question is, how does this changes our, or how does this help us to perform some execution? So over here, how many variables do I have? We only have one variable a and the 3 dots. Now this syntax says that whenever I want to invoke this sum method, I can have n number of variables where n can also be 0. Correct? So I can call this sum method like this as well. I can call this sum method like this as well. I can call it like 4 comma 2 or sum 5 comma 6 comma 10 comma 12. It's up to us how many parameters we want to provide. So yes, so this is one thing that we can use Vararg for, providing the flexibility when we want to give n number of variables or n number of arguments to a method. So let's see how can we use this. See what happens internally. As soon as we provide this will be created a kind of array only. Okay, these 3 dots are just for arrays, but behind the scenes this a is also read as array. So we can get the length of the number of variables in it, like using the length operator. We can go to each indexes like this. Correct? So it works like array only, but just it helps us to give a flexible signature at the time of the method declaration. So let's try this out and then we'll see, are there any limitations or are there any rules for defining Varargs or not. So first let me give it a try. So main, okay, I have created a main method. Let me create a same sum method. All right, so over here I'll give int 3 dots a, correct? So like this I declare a variable a and it is a kind of vararg. Now I'll say return, what we can return is a dot length for now. Okay, we need to return the length of this a variable a. So let me wrap this in a system.out.println statement and let me invoke the method. So for now I am not providing any parameters to it and the answer comes out to be 0. Great, because the length for a is now 0. If I say 2, 3, 56, 78, 43, 90. Now what will be the length of a? You would have already guessed that it will be 6, correct? So for this it comes out to be 6. So this is how we declare a varargs in a method parameter. Now your question can be like, can I have a normal variable using a vararg? So let us give it a try. So int 3, all right. Okay, I have given 3 dots int and let me give the variable name as j. Can we do it like this way? No, we cannot. We get an error, correct? 3 dots. So it doesn't understand any like what are these 3 dots at this moment, because as I said, varargs can only be defined at the time of method signature, correct? So this is my method signature and I can only use vararg as a parameter for a particular method. So just keep that in mind. I cannot have a normal variable inside any method or at the global level like int 3.z. I cannot have any variable like this. So varargs are supposed to be only a kind of method parameter. So just keep this point in mind. You know the syntax, 3 dots. Now let's get a better understanding of it by introducing some new parameters to it. So can I have multiple parameters? Definitely yes. Int, so let me say int x, int y. Now what happens? Now see, over here I can provide 0 parameters to it. All right, so let me provide 0. So for variable a we can provide 0, but now these two are mandatory variables. So I must provide at least 2 variable or at least 2 argument of type int whenever I want to invoke this particular method. So I can say that 6, 7. Yes, I can say that. Now what will happen? Okay, over here what I'll do system.out.println. Yes, I'll say x and in the next line I'll say system.out.println y. Let me perform this task. See, for x it prints 6, for y it prints 7, but for it returns the length as 0 because we haven't provided any value to it. So if I define any other values like this, now what will be the length of a? It will be 6, correct? Because let me tell you how it comes out to be 6. Okay, so this first 6 goes for variable x, second goes for variable y. So now this is 6, this is 7. Now these are the remaining stuff. Are they of type int? Yes. Can I store it in a? Yes, definitely. So this a has value like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. How many values are this? 6 values. Therefore the length of a is 6. So I hope this is clear to till now. So you are asking that is it compulsory to give the method name as varargs? See, my method name is not vararg, correct? My method name is sum. I have given the vararg name to my class and it is not necessary. Varargs is not a keyword. It was just a topic, so I have given the class name as vararg. You can give any name to it like hello or abc. It's up to you. Varargs is not a keyword. For defining a varargs, you must use three dots and only inside the method parameter list. Yes. So yes, I hope it is clear till now. Now my question is, can I have two Varargs? The answer to this is no. Now you will ask why. So let's take a scenario. See, if we make a statement, it should be applicable to each and every scenario, correct? So if I say I can have two Varargs, so this will not satisfy this scenario that we are going to discuss. Okay, so let's say I have two Varargs int a, though it is not possible, but let's check if it was possible, then what would have happened. So let's say we were able to declare two Varargs. Okay, now this method performs some task. All right, now I want to invoke this method from my main method. I said 2, 5, 6, 7, 19, 90, 30, 40. Now you tell me what will go inside B and what will go inside A. To be honest, this is not the actual. That's the reason why that we cannot define two Varargs in a one method. The reason is, see, as I said, if I am defining a Vararg like this, so now this A can hold n number of parameters. I can have 100 parameters as well, arguments. I can give 200 arguments as well. All these arguments, if they are of type int, then it can get accumulated inside A, correct? So this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the 8 integers can get accumulated inside A. So then there is no sense of using another Varargs inside it. So that's the reason why we have to make a statement that we cannot have two Vararg in a single method. So first point you need to note that only one Vararg per method. Yes. So you are asking that we use the Varargs only in method. Yes, we have tried to define it in a method like in a normal fashion, like we used to define a variable, but it didn't work. So Varargs can only be used inside a method parameter list. Yes. Okay. So if I want to use two Varargs, I need two methods, correct? So I hope it is clear till now. Now the next statement is Varargs must be the last parameter. Now again, what do I mean by this? I am saying that it must be the last parameter. So let's say over here I am having three parameters x, y and a, of which a is our Vararg, and I am having it at the end. The reason is, if I try to swap this, okay, if I try to make sum as sum int x, and if I try to introduce a over here, the Varargs over here, and I say int y, see, now what happened if I again give this, okay, now what will happen? 6 will go for x, but this remaining will go for a, because a can store any number of parameters, any number of argument list. So now there is no sense of declaring y after this. So that's the reason why we'll get an error that Varargs must be the last statement. Okay, so the next point you need to notice, Varargs must be the last parameter inside the parameter list. Okay. Okay. So all right, so let us try to break this. Let us try to swap these two, and let us try to introduce two Varargs inside a single method, and let's see whether it works or not. So okay, what I'll do is I'll try to add another parameter like int k, and let's see whether we get an error or not. Yes, see, can you see this red? We get an error that the variable argument type int of the method sum must be the last parameter. So yes, don't get confused with variable arity, Varargs or variable argument. All of them are same. Yes, so this says that we can have Varargs adds the last parameter. So if I have two, okay, now again, if I have two Varargs, okay, then one of them will definitely be the second last, correct? Not both of them be the last one. So this is again one reason that we cannot have two Varargs inside one method. So if I try to have two Varargs like this, okay, if I place them adjacently, so this is the last, but this is not the last one. Yes, this is again the second reason that why we cannot have multiple Varargs in one method. So let's try this one as well. So let us make A as a Vararg, and now let's see whether we get an error or not. See, the error will still be the same. The Vararg or the variable argument type int of the method sum must be the last parameter. So I hope you get a better understanding that what Varargs are. Now, as I have said, Varargs gives the flexibility to us that whether we want to omit the parameter, whether we want to give 10, it's up to you whether we want to give n number of arguments or whether we want to give no arguments whenever we call that particular method. Okay, so it's up to you. We can omit it, we can provide an array as well. Instead of this, we can provide an array as well. So you know how do we define a new array? Yes, correct. So I can provide the array as well, because you know that behind this int, this k will be getting allocated as array only. So now it's up to you that how you use this thing. Yes, so for now our variable is k. Yes, now again the length of the array is 6, so we get the output as 6. So I hope it is clear to every one of you. So someone is asking that why we can't use it in constructor. So we'll see what is the use of constructor. Constructor are not means used for something that methods are used. So methods are used for reusing the code, and we'll see why do we need a constructor. So don't worry about this, but I hope till now it is clear to everyone. Yes, so it gives us the flexibility whether I provide the parameter. If I want to provide the parameter, I can provide directly the number of means n number of parameters as the argument. I can give array as the argument. I can omit the argument as well. Yes, so this completes our Vararg stuff, and you can try and practice this Vararg topic after this session. So now if you have any doubts, you can ask me. And now we are going to proceed with constructor. So now first we'll see why do we need a constructor, what is the use of constructor, and how can we use it efficiently, and how does it affects the code. So let's see. Okay, so let's move down to our student class. You know this class very well. Yes, I hope you remember this class. So now see what was happening over here. When I used to create a object, I said that you don't have to worry about this thing. This is a constructor, but for now don't worry about this. But now we have to worry about this. We have to learn what is this, correct? So whenever I create a object, a constructor is called. Okay, so now you will say there is no constructor. We'll see how this happens even if we don't have any constructors. But for now we have to see that what is the use of constructor. So now what we did, I created a object s. Just a second. Yes, I created a object as s1 s2. Now to initialize them, what I did s.name is equals to Arun, like this. Then for initializing its email, for gender, for phone, and for age. So I initialized 5 variables using the 5 lines of code, and for the 3 variables I used 15 lines of code, correct? So you know, this is the basic stuff. This is the basic stuff that we need to perform again and again whenever I need to create a object. See, if I create 100 student, then too I want to initialize these 5 states of that particular student. So what we'll do, we'll end up writing 500 lines of code like this, and plus 100 lines for creating the object, that is 600 lines of code, correct? So now we'll see how constructor comes into the picture and how it reduces the 500 lines of code. Okay, so let's see what are constructors. So constructors, we can say that it is a kind of special methods, and they are, just a second, constructor runs on object creation. See, when object is created not at the left hand side, it is created at the right hand side, that it is at the runtime. So constructors are always invoked at the runtime, correct? So this stuff is nothing but a constructor. Now you will ask me, where is this constructor? So don't worry about this for now. First we'll see how do we declare a constructor and what is the use of it. So first point, I hope it is clear that it runs on object creation. The second point says that it is used for initializing object state, correct? Okay, so this is the state of object and we have initialized it like this. So for 500 objects we would have initialized its state by using this 5 lines, so which means 2500 lines just for initializing the state of 500 objects, correct? So we are using constructor so that we can reduce this 2500 lines. Okay, and we'll see how we can reduce this. All right, so first thing that I'm gonna tell you that how do we declare a constructor. So for declaring a constructor, the name of the constructor must be same as the name of your class. Now the reason for this, see, okay, so if the constructor name you make it as sum for this subject, for this student class, so this will get counted as a method, correct? So you need to distinguish between methods as well. Okay, so what you do is, the thing is, like whenever you want to declare a constructor, the constructor name must be same as the class name. Okay, so you declare a constructor same as your class name. Our class name is what? Student. You can see it over here. Yes, so I am declaring a constructor using the name student, correct? I can provide some parameters and we'll see how can I use these parameters. And for now let's make it a public. And one thing, you might get a question in interview, that what is the return type of constructor? So the answer to this is, constructor do not have any return type. Now you might get the question, the counter question for this is why? So the reason is, constructor are made for initializing the object state. It is not for performing or computing some task. It is just for initializing the object state. Okay, so constructors are used for initializing the object state. Okay, now yes, I know that it won't be much clear for now. So let us try and create a constructor for this class, and let me tell you that how I can reduce these lines of code. Okay, so let me create a different class and then we'll compare it with this one. I'll create a new class and let me name it as student 2. Okay, so I've given the class name as student 2. All right, we need a main method for creating the object so that we can get to know that the use of constructors. So how can I create a constructor for this class? I can, okay, first let me give public. Yeah, so I can say yes. So now this is a constructor for this class because the name of the constructor must be same as the name of your class. So for now I am saying that system.out.println, I am inside the constructor. Okay, so now let's see whether it is being called or not. So student 2 s is equals to new student 2. This is how we declare a object, correct? So let's see, as I have said that it always invokes a constructor. See, it is invoking a constructor. We are not calling it directly, correct? We are calling it, or I can say that as soon as I create an object, it invokes this particular constructor. So now the question arises that previously we didn't have any such constructor. Then how our code ran, correct? So if we don't have any constructor, if I don't have any constructor like this, the JVM will by default create a constructor with no arguments the same way. Okay, so this constructor student2 will be created by the JVM for us. Okay, yes. So this, see, if I don't have any constructor, what will happen? It will look for this constructor with no arguments. Okay, there is no such constructor, or there is no constructor for this class. So what it will do, it will create a constructor by its own, and this constructor is called as default constructor. Okay, and how many arguments does it expect? It expects 0 arguments. Okay, so default constructor requests us for 0 arguments, so it doesn't have any arguments or doesn't have any parameters and doesn't have any such method bodies. For now we can say that it is just a empty constructor. Later when we move to super keyword and all, then we'll again go through these concepts. Yes, so I hope it is clear till now. But if we have at least one of, if we have one constructor as well, so this default constructor is not created. Okay, now it looks for the constructor which expects 0 arguments. And is there any constructor like this? Yes, we do have over here. So if there is any constructor like this, then you have to invoke that particular constructor. Okay, so now it is over here. Then what will happen? It will create an object S and it will invoke this particular constructor. Yes, now let's see the actual use of our constructor. So let me comment this one. Yes, and let me create a new constructor. So what is the name of the constructor? Same as our class. So what I'll do is I'll just define some state for our student. So let us copy the state from over here. Yes, I'll just remove this static, and you know why I did that. Yes, so this is a state of our constructor, sorry, object. Don't worry about this for now. Yes, so how many arguments does my constructor expects? It expects 5 arguments. Okay, first one is of type string, second is of type string again, then long, int and string. Okay, how can I invoke this? I can invoke this by providing some arguments over here, because now as I said, if we have one constructor, then the default constructor won't get created. Now it will give us an error that this signature doesn't matches the signature what our actual constructor expects. So what our actual constructor expects? It expects string, string, long, int and string. So let me provide some values to it. Let me say Arun @gmail.com and numbers like this, age as 22 and gender as yes. So now what I am doing now, see this values, whenever I invoke this, it will invoke which constructor? It will invoke the constructor at the line number 17, correct? It will go over here and it will give the values to this, correct? Now you know that whenever I invoke or whenever I create a object, this constructor is the one that is going to invoked, correct? So what you did is you passed some values. You pass the values that you can use for initializing the state of the object. Now your question will be, how can I initialize the object? So what will happen, this constructor we will be designing this constructor in a way that it will be initializing the state for our object. So we can change the name for this object as name is equals to n, correct? Email is equals to e, phone is equals to L, age is equals to A, gender is equals to G, correct? So now what happens, just try and understand this. Yes, so now what happens, as soon as you create this object, this S is created and this invokes this particular constructor. So the constructor, we are passing 5 values, Arun @gmail.com, and the long values and the 22 and male. So now what happens to this, it will go to this constructor and it will pass these arguments or this argument as the parameter for this constructor. And now what we are doing inside this constructor, we are trying to change the name for this particular student as the first parameter. So now let me run this. Okay, we didn't get any values, correct? Inside the console we don't have anything. Now let me try and print the name for S, system.out.println as.name. Now let me do this. See, can you see Arun comes over here, correct? So if I say system.out.println as.email, see, we have initialized the name, email, and we have also initialized the phone number, age and gender for this S using the single line. What we were doing previously was we were writing these 5 lines of code. Now your question will be, hey, you have already written these 5 lines over here. Yes, correct, but what if I create another object? Okay, let me try to create another object. Yes, so I have created another object. Let me change the name for this object. Let me give it as R. So now I have created another object. Now I am using those 5 lines, correct? I am not defining another 5 lines. So what I did is, now let me try to print the name for this object. Instead of S, I'll write R over here. Yes, now if I try to print this, see, I have initialized the state for this object as well using the same constructor. So what I was doing previously, I was writing 5 lines differently for this S object and then another 5 line for S1, correct? So in total we have written 10 lines for initializing the state of two objects and 2 lines for creating the two objects. So in total we have created or we have written 12 lines. So let's say we have third object as well. So how many lines we would have written? 5 5 5, that is 15, and 3 for creating the object, 18. But what if I use this approach? What if I use the constructor? These 5 lines are written over here and then the 3 lines just for declaring the object. See, so we have reduced the lines of code and we are using a constructor for initializing the state of our object. So my S is just getting initialized with its name, email, the phone number, age and gender, and even the R. So this is how constructor helps us to initialize the object state. So there is no sense of creating any or defining any return type for constructor, because the main agenda for using the constructor is just initializing the objects. It is not used for computation or any other function or any other to perform any other task, because for doing that we are using methods. But for initializing the object state, the one thing that is always called is constructor. So we can use the constructor just for initializing the object state, and if we don't have any constructor, then a default constructor is created. But if we have at least one constructor over here, then the default constructor is not at all created. So we have to match the argument list the way it expects. So I hope till now it is clear to every one of you, and if you have any doubts you can ask me. Okay. So do you have any doubts? Yes. Now one thing, I can have two constructor as well. So this is something called as constructor overloading. Okay. So what do you mean by method overloading? So in method overloading, we had multiple methods with the same name but the difference in the parameter list. So the same way we can perform constructor overloading as well. I can have the constructor, and you know the name for the constructor is definitely the same, because the name will be always like the class name. So let me declare another. Yes. So this is my another constructor, correct? But over here previously it was expecting 5 argument and this one is expecting no arguments, and now I will do system.out.println inside no arguments constructor. Yes. So now what happens? How can I call this one? You would have already guessed it. I can just say student 2 j is equals to new student 2. See, now what will happen behind the scenes? We are trying to create this object. All right. It will invoke this constructor. Is there any constructor? You know the name of the constructor will be this only. So is there any constructor first? Yes. If there is any constructor, I am not going to create a default constructor. Okay. Then there are two constructors, correct? Now is there any constructor that matches this argument list, which means that expects 0 arguments? Is there any constructor like this? So let us see this one. Yes, there is a constructor at line number 25 that expects no arguments, because over here it have 0 parameters, correct? So now what will happen for this line number 39? Which constructor is going to invoked? It is the 25th line, and we'll get an output as inside no argument constructor. So let me run this. See, the last line says that inside no argument constructor. So though we are not invoking it explicitly, but as soon as I create an object, it is definitely going to get called. Okay, so do you have any doubts regarding this? So now we have performed constructor overloading as well. So now your question will be, why do I need constructor overloading? Okay, so now at this moment of time it won't be much clear, but I'll help you to understand that why do I need constructor overloading. So constructor overloading is used for defining objects with different capabilities. So let me have another constructor, the third constructor, and this constructor cannot set the age and gender. Okay, so if I want to create a object that can only set the starting three fields, I can invoke this particular constructor. And if I want to create a object that can set the all the five fields, so I can invoke this. And if I want to create an object that cannot set anything, I can invoke this one, correct? And if I want a object student to that can see, now this constructor we are creating it as like it will be able to change the college name. All right, so if we want to change a college name, I'll use this constructor. So my object, whoever is going to call this constructor, is having the capability of changing the college name, correct? So if I invoke this one, okay, if I write parameters over here and if I say ABC college, correct? So now which constructor it is going to call? It is going to call a constructor, this one, and this constructor internally is going to change the college name. And you know that the college name is static, so it will be changing the college name for all, correct? So over here we have defined how many constructor, 1 2 3 and 4. So this is something called as constructor overloading. If we just want the user want only their email, like user will enter the email, then it should be printed all the. I'm not understanding your question, can you please reframe it? Yes, so we know that why do I need a constructor? I can set or I can initialize my object states, and if I provide different constructor, which means I can provide different capabilities to my object. See, for now this S and R has invoking the constructor that expects 5 parameters, which means this S is having the capability of changing the 5 state of this current object. But this J is different. This J is invoking the constructor with one parameter of the type string. So this constructor can change the college name. So this is how constructor overloading can be used. It can be used for initializing the object state. The constructor are used for initializing the object state, but if you use constructor overloading, you are defining constructors with different abilities. All right, so yes, so now you can use, see what we have done till now. When we were dealing with method overloading, we have also seen that we can invoke a method within a method, correct? Now your question will be, how can I invoke a constructor within a constructor? So don't worry about this, because we will be seeing the this keyword. Okay, for now, see, this is too much for one session because we have discovered Varargs as well. Actually, I was planning to include this keyword today only, but I think it is too much for now, because see, we have discussed what are Varargs, how can we use Varargs, all right, and then we have moved directly to the constructor, and now constructor is again one confusing or might be difficult topic for the freshers or for the beginners, I can say. So what we can do is, we'll just give time for constructor today. We'll learn how we can use constructor. Yes, So we can learn how we can use the constructors, and you try and practice each scenarios. First, define no constructor, whether it works or not, and we have done that. It works because it creates a default constructor. Define some constructors. First, define one constructor only with no arguments, and try to create an object and try to check whether it is going inside that constructor or not, and then try to introduce some state for that particular class, like the state as the name, email, and then try to create a constructor for changing all these fields. So big learn, you are asking that if we have 5 student details but I want all the emails of the student, how we can do that? See, it is not the creation stuff, correct? You are asking that you already have 5 students. For now we are just creating students, we are not retrieving. The retrieving stuff is just for checking whether it is actually happening or not. Alright, so we are now focusing on how to create objects efficiently. Previously we were writing 10 lines for initializing the state for 2 objects, but now we are not doing that because we have something predefined that can do that for us, correct? So this is the purpose of using constructor. Now if you want to get the email for 5 students or for the 5 students, then there are different aspects, but it is not the topic for this constructors. We'll see loops and all after few sessions, but for now constructor is the one that we are focusing on today, correct? So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, and I'll request you that you definitely go and practice about what are constructors, how can we use them, and also perform constructor overloading. Try and create several objects with different capabilities. And if you face any difficulties, I'm there for helping you all. Yes. So do you have any doubts till now? Alright, so today's topic is clear to you. Yes. So now we know how the complete syntax of the students, means the complete syntax of creating a objects. Previously we were just doing and we ignored some syntax, right? Previously we just knew till this, we didn't knew that what this second student is for. So now we again knew that what the actual line means. Now I hope it is clear to all. Now one thing that we have missed, that why our main method is static, correct? As I have promised that we will be dealing with each and every keyword that we have discovered till now. So you know that this main is the name of your method, so no worries for this main. You know why void is there, because there is no sense of returning anything from the main method, because if my program terminates, how can I use that particular value? Yes. Now the thing is, why do I need the main method to be static? So you all know that for static, one copy is always there. For objects, 0 copies in the start, and the copy relies on the number of objects. So for creating any object, see, for creating the copy of an instance stuff, at least one copy, for getting the at least one copy for an instance stuff, you need at least one object. And for creating an object, you need your program execution get started, and you cannot get started if you don't have any entry point. So to make something as your entry point, let's say the main, you need to make it as static so that we always have one copy available to it. Yes. So I hope it is clear for now that why main method is static. So now this keyword is also clear, that because we need at least one copy for the entry point. If I don't have the entry point, how can I start my execution? So I need the copy of entry point, and you know, one thing that gives us the copy always available is static. So that's the reason why we make the main method as static. So for now this thing is clear. Now the remaining thing that is missing is the public and this. Okay, now you also know that what are they, correct? This is the name of the variable and this is the type of the parameter, and the parameter is of type array and of string. So you also know this, but we'll see a use of this, correct? Now you know the syntax. So the syntax that you don't know is only public. but yes, again we have to get a better understanding that why this is written. Okay, so we'll see the purpose of writing this, don't worry. Yes, so I hope till now each and every topic is clear to everyone. Is there any possibilities that you could teach us within your sessions? What I can teach, like I'm currently teaching you. Okay, you want that how to read Java documentation. So what we'll do is, after the complete core Java session, we'll just have a quick session for knowing that how to read Java documentation, like the documentation that is being predefined by, or that is being written by the Oracle itself. So we'll try to read that one as well. What is the difference between? Yes, and you are asking that what is the difference between Java version and why do we need that? So don't worry about this thing as well. Okay, at the end of the session, see, first we have to complete the core topics for this, and then as soon as we are good to go with all the topic like oops, collections and all, then we'll proceed and we'll check what evaluations that happened in Java. See, if in my very first day, if I said that streams get introduced inside the, means at the Java 8 version, will that be making any sense to you? No. So first we have to get a understanding that what the thing or what static means, correct, or what this keyword means. So after the complete core Java session, we'll again have few sessions that how evolution took place, what are the new features that got involved in Java 8, 11 or the latest Java versions. We'll see that one as well, so don't worry about this. And do you have any other doubts? So you can ask me. And please go and practice today's session and get a better understanding that why do we need a constructor and how we can use it. All right, so we'll meet tomorrow at the same time, and thank you everyone for joining today's session. Yes, great. So we'll catch up tomorrow.